Okay, this video is about camera cages, the 8 kinds of mounts you need to know about them, and the accessories to attach all the features you find in camcorders or higher end cameras. So let me give you an example. In 2006, a good friend of mine bought me this camera, the Sony Z1. Loved this camera because it was so feature rich, right? You had 2 rings here, one for zoom, one for focus. You had a zoom rocker on top, another zoom rocker on the side where the handle is. You had an EVF viewfinder at the side, so you could see in on a bright day, and you had a articulating screen that flipped around, so you could either film yourself, see what you're filming, and or check your menu and change your settings within it. Also in this here, you had built-in ND filters. So it was a really bright day and you were trying to view it on your monitor and the colors were kind of washed out. You could stop up or stop down the filters depending on how bright it was, so you can manage the colors and the brightness better. Also in the back there was a larger space for larger batteries, so you get longer running time out of it. You had built-in scratched audio built in, and also 2 professional XLR inputs. There's a lot going on in this camera, a lot of features built into it, but you can see the size difference in it, so it can manage all that. So with mirrorless cameras and DSLR, the form factor is a lot smaller, partly so you can put them on gimbals and do B-roll footage and so on, but there's times you want to build it out and build all these features back onto them, because the sensors in these and the frame rates in these are fantastic. And so how you do that is you need to understand about cages, all the mounts and sort of the ecosystem around them mounts that attach all these features I just mentioned on this camera. And that's what we're going to get into. So let's go there. Okay, first let's look at cages and the things you need to know about cages. So all cages come with 2 main thread sizes, 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch. Now the 1/4 inch has 9mm space in between them if there's enough room to put a number of them. And so if you have a thread bolt handle, for example, side handle or top handle, it'll be 18mm between 2 bolts, which means you can step up in increments of 9mm on the cage. I find when you start attaching lots of accessories, you find yourself with lots of Allen keys and things that come with all these accessories, and I end up losing half of them. They're all over the place, so there's just too many. So there are a couple of tools, I'll just mention them here because you'll probably want them in your kit. Here's ones, different companies do them, but this is a wee kit from Small Rig that comes with the main sort of bolts, threads, 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch, as well as some other ones with wee screw mounts for little finicky things that go on the cages, and comes with some Allen keys and a hex tool for your bottom base plates and so on. I generally don't worry about them wee bits, but I bought the other tools by Small Rig, which are more like your Swiss Army knife, sort of with 9 sort of wee blades on them for your hex tools, and they have the major threads and screws on them. So I keep a couple of them around in my bag or on my person. And lastly, just a wee tool I mentioned is a wee step up and down for threads. Rode came out with this one. You can buy them individually, and I'll put some affiliate links in the bottom for some of this stuff. But say you have a 3/8 inch, which is a larger thread hole, and your handle is 1/4 inch with 2 bolts. Things like this here, step it down for you. So we adapter to help you step down if you got stuck by accident. So they're handy just to have if you find yourself working with different kind of thread sizes. So there's 10 mounts here in the ecosystem when it comes to building out cages, and a few other wee accessories I'll talk about in a minute. So of the 10, only 8 of them are your main ones. The 2, which is the V mount and the gold mount, are for batteries only. But when it comes to attaching monitors or handles, top and side, and base plates and stuff, you need to know base plates. You need to know about these kind of the main 8. So there are 8 main ones, but there are 2 others which are more to do with batteries, which is V mount and gold mount. But let's start right at the very beginning, make it simple. So if you just look over here on the right hand side of me, you will see single thread and double bolt. Single thread's fine if it's just a wee light, like in the case of a iPhone camera ring or something, or a smartphone, and you're making a wee cage around that. Not too heavy, but if you've got a heavier rig, you'll want something with 2 bolts so things don't swivel. So that's your threads, as I said, single mount and single bolt and double bolt, and they come in 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch. That's number 1. Number 2 is ARRI mount. ARRI mount's very cool. It can come in 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch also, but it has 2 wee locating pins that lock it into the cage. So some of these cages, you'll see them, they'll become with, you'll see like there's a 3/8 inch here, and it's got all these wee small wee holes for the wee pins to go into, so you can put the handle in what angle you want that suits you, or ergonomically. What's the word? Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. You can mount them around it. Some of them just come with 2, some come with like a 4. There's one with 2 on top on this, and then there's a circle of wee locating pins on the side as well. So you'll notice that on the cage, that's what the ARRI locating pins are for, and you'll get handles with them wee pins as well, 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch. So it's a top handle I have here, and it has the ARRI mount on it. So they're great. They stop things from swiveling and lock it in when it comes to heavier stuff as well. Over is the next one, which is the NATO system. The NATO system is great because it has clamps and rails, and them rails come in different lengths and different thicknesses. But these are great because of the quick release nature of them. But let me just say something about the rails first. I say these rails can be adapted into your one here I have here with little 1/4 inch. This is a low profile one, more of a thinner one, and it has 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch. And you'll attach that to your cage. You've got a cold shoe if you need a wee cold shoe and something to adapt to it. But you can get them also that will attach or adapt to the other mounts I'm about to mention in a wee second. So get your thick ones for anywhere from 25mm up to 150mm thereabouts, and different brands do that. I'll leave a lot of the links for all these things in the description at the end. Next one over, after you've got past your NATO clamp system, and they're great. Just before I finish that, NATO clamps are great for side handles. You'll notice actually some of these cages have your thread mounts, your ARRI mounts, and a NATO rail as part of the side plate, so you can just clamp straight onto it. And the rig I have over here is a small rig one, does it. This is a Tilta one, and a lot of the brands do it depending on the camera and the cage they've built. So a lot of them come with these multi-features on them. So onto our 15mm rods. You can get 19mm rods for sort of heavier, bigger rigs, but 15mm rods are the standard for most of this form factor here, and it'll handle everything and the weight well. You get different lengths of these rods depending on the size of the rig you're trying to build out. If you're trying to do a big shoulder mount, obviously you're going to want a longer rod. It's going to sit on your shoulder, put your shoulder pad on there, handle all your lens supports and stuff like that on it. So, but if it's a smaller one, you'll use a smaller rod. You can get double clamp rods, and you can get single clamp rods, and again, all these will adapt and convert to these other mounts as well. So when it works with this here and you're thinking, okay, I don't have that, but I could get an adapter and convert to it and get to it one way or another. It's a little bit of Lego footer and get on there. Okay, so once you get past your rods, you're into your shoes, not the ones on your feet, but these are cold shoes. There are 3 types of shoes: cold shoe, hot shoe, and multifunction shoe. Multifunction shoe, yeah. So cold shoe has no electronics in it, but it's based on the old cameras back in the day where it wanted to power a flash that could go off. So hot shoes actually have power going through it and will power a flash or a light if you're filming. Okay, multifunction will also add the signal of audio can go through it. So on my Sony FX3 I have a multifunction shoe on it that'll power XLR audio down through the shoe, which is fantastic, and who knows what else features they'll build into that in the future. So that's a creative mount option there, and again you can convert and adapt from cold shoe to NATO rail to bolts and the other ones coming up. So on from our shoes we have our Rosette mounts. Rosettas are great. The teeth in these, the grip on these is fantastic, and so they will just go on, but very good for sort of shoulder rig side handles. But again, they will convert and adapt to all these other 8 mounts I've just mentioned here, and they're great. They come with 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, ARRI, NATO, 15mm rod, and I've seen the cold shoe one as well. Last of the 8 main ones, last one is the super clamp. Super clamp's really handy for this. It's got 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch threads on them. And you can have them on the back side and so on. And you'll see one here that has a wee magic arm coming out from it. And so you want to put a monitor or something on it, you can connect that, clamp it onto one of your 15mm rods, put a monitor off to the side, and that can be very handy. So your super clamps also good for putting onto your tripod legs. If you don't want the big monitor and the weight of that on your rig and you're on a tripod, just clamp it on to the leg of your tripod and then attach your monitors and so on. So that's our 8 main ones. As I said, there are 10. The other 2 are your V-mount and your gold mount. I don't have the gold mount with me, but the V-mount is called the V-mount, you can guess, because it actually is in the shape of a V. And it just slots in, and the V-mount and the gold mount are mainly for charging your whole rig, from your monitor to your camera and so on. So they have these D-tap connections on the side of them, and some of the plates come with extra ones on it, and barrels will go on the side of them as well. I'll maybe say more of that later. So that can power your whole kit for a longer period of time. And then the last things you need to know about are these, just think arms. You have articulating or flexible arms or friction arms, but they're arms, and you have your monitor mounts. Before your monitor mounts, you have magic arms, and the magic arm is on this rig, and you'll see more of that later. So you have arms, sometimes called articulated or friction or flexible arms. Come in different lengths and sizes, and some of them are better than others as far as strength and the weights they can bear. And you can check that on their spec sheets. I'll put some options for you again in the description at the bottom. Then you have your monitor mounts. They can come with these 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, ARRI, NATO, and so on. All these 8 main mounts you see here. And then lastly, you have your base plates. And the main base plates when it comes to this form factor in cameras are your Manfrotto 501s, or if it's longer, 502 and 3 and so on. And then you have your, I like the QR2s, they're a quick release system, also done by Manfrotto and other brands. And then the very popular one now is obviously Arca-Swiss. And you can get adapters in these base plates that will swap between them as well. And you'll see some of the cages come with Arca-Swiss on the bottom. So you said some will have NATO rails, ARRI clamps, but the bases can have Arca-Swiss as well as the thread mount. So you'll find if you're stuck, there's some way of adapting this and converting it so it'll work with your stuff. And once you get your head around all these different mounts and the kind of ecosystem on it, then you can think, okay, which features do I want and which mount type do I want to use that I prefer to mount, say, a monitor, side handles, battery, your lens supports, and so on. Okay, now we're going to build all the features that are more or less in this Sony Z1 back into this form factor of the mirrorless camera. This is the Sony FX3. So I'm going to try and show you how that works with the cage and the different mounts that we've talked about. And I use quite a few of them on this here. So let's start with the cage. Now for this particular camera, there are about 4 different brands that are doing different mounts, this 4 or 5. I'm going to use the half cage by Small Rig. You can also use the Tilta modular one, which breaks down into either full cage. There's a NATO rail that goes on here for this top mount here, and you can break this down into a half cage also. So that's also an alternative. You have a full cage one by 8 and we also have the Condor Blue, which is a modular one that goes from full. There's a side plate here with thread mounts, ARRI mounts, and it's a NATO rail in itself. And it also has another NATO rail for the top to give you the full cage. So that's a couple of them are modular, some are half, some are full cage. So I'm just going to use the half cage just to show you how we can build most of the features back out just with this half cage. So I'll go through some of the items on the table, starting with the base plate by NATO rig, and it's going to mount onto a tripod, but also has 15mm rod mounts that I can slide in and then start adding all these different attachments and features onto it. Over to the left here, I have a follow focus, so that gives me that focus thing where you had in the last one. I have a magic arm, and on that magic arm I can swap out different mounts. This is a magic ball mount, and I can swap out to NATO rail, ARRI, threads, and so on. I have a wee side handle by Small Rig, and it's got a Rosette grip and also a NATO rail clamp adapted onto that. I'm using the Atomos Ninja 5, and I've put a Small Rig cage on it because it has a NATO rail along the bottom, ARRI mounts as well, and threads, 3/8 and 1/4 inch options. And on the top, again, the NATO rail as well. So that's helpful if you want to mount other things. We HDMI cable to take higher bit rate footage out of this into the Atomos Ninja 5. This is a D-tap battery, dummy battery that's going to go in there and go to this V-mount battery. And this is a V-mount battery adapter by Small Rig, and it has a nice wee 15mm rod mount attached to the bottom as well. So that lets me attach that to the rod system. Once I start fitting this out, you will see that. It also comes with D-tap on it. D-tap is standard D-tap is about 14 volts, and it will regulate it for the camera and or for monitors you might mount onto that. Unless it states differently, the standard is kind of 14 volts. There are some barrel mounts on the side. There's two 12 volts and 8 volt and a USB-A port out as well. So if you want to adapt that maybe to USB-C, you get power as an option there also, some things. And it's an on-off button, so once I turn that on and off, I can turn everything on and off in one go, which is great. And then this over here is the handle. The XLR handle looks slightly different if people recognize this, because I have a little 3D printed system, and I'll mention who made these later, or on the screen here. And I also have a Small Rig NATO rail top extension arm for this handle, just to give it a bit more room, and then attach this monitor easily and get the balance right. And then for the ND filters, I'm using a Revo ring by H&Y. This is a variable ND filter. And for those who aren't quite sure what that does, so if it's really bright day and I need to stop it down, I can literally just, as you can see there in the above camera, it gets darker and brighter. I'll show you in this camera as well. Probably see it with the screen behind me. It gets darker and brighter. And that way I can manage the amount of light that comes in to the sensor, so I don't overexpose or bleach out the image I want to. Two 50mm rods. I think that's most of it. And then a wee tool. I should be able to attach all this with this Small Rig tool. Right, I think we're ready to do the build. So let's start with the cage and then start adding all the mounts. So I'll put on the Okay, there's the cage on. It's the base plate first, the AC one. So we'll mount it to a tripod, but for now I'm going to turn this upside down, turn the camera upside down, and there's 1/4 inch threads in the bottom, and that's a 1/4 inch there. So take the wee hex tool. Okay, keep that level. And now I can attach the tripod mount part of it. Okay, that's the base plate on. So that can sit flat on that, which is helpful. And then we can take the 15mm rod, slide them through, get them lined where I want them to be roughly. I need enough out the front and enough out the back to mount the base plate and mount the follow focus. And then I've got wee thumb ratchet screws that just pull out, which is great. Right, so there's the 15mm rod, base plate by an AC rig, and the two rods on. Now, let's mount. Let me mount actually the rods, the V-mount battery on the 15mm rod at the back. This is the wee adapter. Just before I lock that down, let me take the articulating screen out to the side so I can see that when it's on a tripod. So that's the V-mount with the articulating arm. That lets me bring it closer and get the balance better. So the V-mount then will just attach onto that V-mount adapter on the back of this plate. Now I know if I pull that back, the weight's going to start making it tilt back. So this is all about this rod system and getting the balance right. So once you start putting more things near the front, it'll all balance out, and you just got to footer with it a little bit until you get what you want. So I'll add on the XLR handle. Let's just pull that back out of the way. So this is a multifunction shoe on this one, so the audio can go through this handle into the camera. So as I said about cold shoes and hot shoes means it's got some power coming through it, and a multifunction shoe means rather than just a flash, you can take different signals like audio and so on. Okay, it's starting to feel like the balance is better. Actually, it's feeling very good. Yeah, let's take the magic arm, and it has the, as I said, the NATO clamps. And I'm gonna slide that on the NATO rail, which is the small rig extender for this handle. And it has a NATO rail and threads on it, so you have a couple of options there, depending on what you want to mount it with. Let me turn that around. And just, what I like about this particular one, it just leans forward a little bit and it helps me with the balance. So let's slide remember this has a NATO rail, and it also threads, ARRI mounts and quarter inch in there. So depending on what adapter you want on these magic arms, I'm just using the NATO rail because it's quick and handy. And then the wee thumb wrench tightens it on. Tighten that. Make sure the balance isn't leaning too far forward. There we go. And I have a screen up there. Let's put in our dummy battery in the bottom. And then that's going to go into the D-tap on the side of the V-mount battery. Now let's power the camera. Now, the follow focus, as you see, this is all coming together really fast now. Now I've got the base to hook things onto and the cage on it. Just line up the follow focus with the thread, the rubber focus ring there. Tighten her on so it doesn't move. Make sure when I turn it, yep, it's turning the focus. That's great. Let's take the HDMI cable. Put that in there. Just a wee bit of quick cable management here. Bring it around the handle slightly. Great, now I can get a better res footage coming out of there. Can push up the base plate a bit more. Let's see what the balance is like. That's good. Let's put on the side handle. It has a Rosette grip and also a NATO clamp on it. So I can slide up there. Having to lock the front out of the way. We're nearly there, people. Side handles, follow focus, battery, power, monitor. And let's put on the ND filters. Just hey, presto. There she is. And let's just see if the power's coming through. If I turn this on. That's good. Yay, there's the power. Great. Z1. So let's just look at that side by side. So got our monitor, we got our ND filters, we got our vertical ND filter on there. We have built-in XLR here. We have with this handle XLR, two of them over there as well, and the scratch one for the scratch mic. There's a wee 3.5 jack, and you can put in a microphone there. Obviously, I don't have one put in a minute because I'm using it above. No EVF finder, but if you're doing a shoulder rig, you could do that and add an EVF finder, or attach one that's going to work with this monitor, or just move that out in front of you and use your monitor as your way of viewing. Big battery plate as in the back, and then for focus we have the Tilta mini focus attached to the lenses there. Then if you want to have zoom, you're going to need a zoom lens. The good thing about the actual zoom with this FX3, there is actually this wee dial here is a zoom rocker. So if I pull that and I have a lens that can zoom in and out, I can use that wee dial to control that. Other handles which are excellent, which I would even recommend and have one myself, is the Tilta one. And if you got the Tilta wireless nucleus, you can control it. It's got a powered handle, and it will control the follow focus, but from this handle here. So you just don't have to take your hand off. You can put another handle here if you want more security. But yeah, that's some options. I'm liking that. Looking good. Okay, so we use different mounts there from the ones we mentioned at the start. A bunch of NATO rails. There are obviously still more mounting points if I need to. Lots of threads to attach things. If you want to put on a mat box and so on, you can get a bigger one. Just a wee point, the wee mini mat boxes won't fit with the Revo ring from H&Y. You'd have to get a bigger one. Otherwise, just use if you're getting the mini one because it's a nicer size, you could probably, with this kind of form factor, you can get their wee step-up rings and put them in and have your ND filters working that way. So that's great. I have to get another D-tap cable, and that'll run up into the wee adapter in the back of the Ninja, and that's been ordered and that'll come. So I'll be able to power that and get about 2 hours off this particular battery. So I have a couple of them and I'm shooting for a longer time. I know I'm fine. I hope that's helpful. There's a lot in that, right? So I'm going to attach a wee graphic in the description. You can download the sort of 8 mounts and kind of pictures of them to remind you. And then I'll put some affiliate links and stuff in there as well. If you have any thoughts or questions, sure, let me know. Thank you for watching this. Could I ask you, please do like and subscribe. You've already got 1,000 or so follows in the first month of my first video, which is great. But I just need people to subscribe so I can actually get the benefits of having like 1,000 subscribers on there. So if you are watching that and you got some value from this, please hit a wee subscribe. I'll try and make some good stuff. I'll do my best. Thank you. Have a great day. All the best. Bye.